16 months ago, I wanted to kill myself. This is how I felt in the aftermath of my partner's sudden and unexpected suicide. He was the valedictorian of his high school class, the MVP of the basketball team, and was truly the shining light and life of every party. We'll never know what happened on that day, what led him to kill himself, leaving behind a loving son and a life full of achievements, success, and love. All I know is how it feels to have lost someone that I loved so deeply, to walk through the hallways of grief, loss, and despair, and back into the garden of life. And I never thought this would be my life. I never fathomed that I would be here speaking with you about this today. After a 7-year illness and a divorce, I thought that I'd been through enough hard life lessons for one lifetime. So what does this have to do with you? By a show of hands, how many of you have suffered some form of loss or disappointment in your life? We all suffer and have suffered, and we will again. Yoga is the practice of returning to the truth that is unchanging, the part of us that is never hurt and will never be hurt, while still being present to the realness of human suffering in our hearts. When I began my study of yoga 20 years ago, and throughout the last 20 years, I suppose I had some tools for dealing with grief, but it wasn't asana, it wasn't standing on my head or doing the splits that helped in my healing, and it wasn't even meditation. In fact, at the height of the shock and the trauma, meditation seemed absolutely absurd to me. Absolutely absurd. But this is why we do yoga, so that we have a foundation, so that when life presents the unimaginable, we can survive and then eventually thrive. Neuroscience has been doing a lot of study on the mind-body connection and how we can literally create new neural pathways in the brain. Ayurveda and yoga have also been studying this for thousands of years. And in Ayurveda and yoga, they've also known that the heart is the seat of consciousness, that we can't ignore the heart when it comes to healing. In fact, it's the source. How we feel is the catalyst for either healing or for disease. We're complex, multidimensional beings with a brain, awareness, spirit, and we are powerful creators. We create our reality by what we believe, think, and feel about ourselves and the world. Belief systems literally inform our experiences. When we think a thought, it initiates a neurochemical reaction and triggers associated feelings that move through the body. What I will share with you today is the most powerful transformational tool that I used and am using to move through grief and to live a life of joy and possibility. However, we have a negativity bias. Have you noticed that? You get feedback, 99% of it is amazing, 1% is negative. What do you focus on? You focus on the one person who wants to tear down what you're doing, thinking, or expressing. This negativity bias was developed thousands of years ago in our brain, and there was a real purpose to it. It was back in the day when we literally had to run from tigers and save our life. So there was a purpose for being able to sense danger. However, most people that walk through my office door for Ayurvedic consultation or bioenergy healing are living in a low-grade anxiety, living in that constant state of fight or flight, where there's cortisol running through the body, burning out the adrenals, exhausting and leading to other health problems and issues as well. But what if we have control over what we think and feel no matter what is happening? What if we get to choose how we experience and respond to situations? We don't always get to choose what happens to us in our life, that's for sure, but the empowerment comes from the place of deciding who we want to be in the middle of something. how we want to show up, how we want to respond opposed to react in any situation. So neuroscience is showing that we can change not only the function, but the structure of our brain. This is called neuroplasticity. So we have pathways, these neural pathways like grooves in the gray matter of our brain, and we can change these. So we can change our habits, our thoughts, our tendencies, our addictions. And this is what I want to share with you today. And this is the tool that I used when I was inundated with nightmares and reoccurring thoughts and images of my partner's death. So here's the key. And the key is simple in theory, not always in practice, but it will change your life. If you take this on, if you really make this your practice, it will transform your life. And I wouldn't be standing here today to share this with you if that wasn't true. So here's the key. Find a better feeling thought. Find a better feeling thought. Well, what does that mean? We can't go from the state of despair to a state of joy in an instant. That's called suppression. So I'm not talking about that here. What is the first instruction in meditation? To notice, to observe, to be aware. Awareness is the first step, yes. But what I found was in the height of trauma, being aware was like being in hell. Every single thought was super intense and heightened, and I was aware of every single thought that went through my mind and every feeling that corresponded that went and moved through my body. So awareness is the first step, but if we stop there, if we get stuck there, we suffocate and it perpetuates deeper states of depression and anxiety. So awareness is the transformational point. That's the moment of reprogramming. So how do we do this? We have a thought that's creating suffering, and essentially what we want to do is just shift 2 degrees, just a little bit over to a thought that feels a little bit better. And then the next thought, a little bit better. And then the next thought, a little bit better still, until we create an upward moving spiral. So for example, if you've had a thought, maybe it's even subconscious, just running the show in the background of, I'm not good enough. And you've had this thought through your whole life, hanging out there, driving the show, guiding your actions and your moves. And if that thought of, I'm not good enough, is hanging out, it really shifts our perception of the world and how we interact with people, how we think about ourselves. So that thought over and over and over becomes a belief system. And until we can shift the thought and the belief system, we're a little bit stuck. So there's times in your life that you might be in physical pain, completely stressed out, exhausted, maybe dealing with addiction, anxiety, depression, that it might seem near impossible to find a better feeling thought. What you have to do in those instances is go general. What I mean by that is find something to focus on that isn't going to loop you back into the negativity. So for me, I look to nature, focusing on the mountains, feeling the warmth of the sun beating down on my back, looking at a flower blooming. It can be anything, but something that you can shift your focus to and have appreciation for, have gratitude for. And when you do that, you create enough space to take you away from that habitual negative thought pattern or form. It gives enough space just to create relief in many instances and shift our focus. And then we continue to do that over and over and over again. It literally creates a shift in our vibrational stance. And that's how we can reprogram the pathways and create this upward moving spiral. So there's nothing inherently wrong with negative feelings. I don't want you to get the wrong idea about that. In fact, they're a part of life, and we have to move through every feeling and emotion so that it doesn't get stuck in our cells and stuck in the tissues of our body. However, the key is that you get to choose how long you want to be in destructive energy and how long you want to be in constructive energy. So initially, after my partner's death, I had no space in my mind. Thoughts were just there. It was one horrendous thought after another. There was nowhere to go. But what I did, I practiced this as often as I could. So I would lie down at night and I would shift my focus to the comfort of the pillow, the bed, the warmth of the duvet cover over me. Literally anything that I could focus on that was real, that was tangible, that could shift my awareness. And then what would happen is the mind would go back to the horrors, and I would acknowledge that, and then come back to something, anything that felt better. And sometimes I would drop images and memories from my childhood, the good ones, of course, and I would focus on things like going to parties with friends or just remembering good times in my life and start to replay those in my mind. And sometimes I would even imagine the future, things that I would like to happen in my life. So in this way, taking control over the mind instead of letting the mind just going back into that negative habit and that perpetual downward spiral. Because I knew where that went. I traveled down there so many times. And it got to a point where it just became exhausting. And that I made a decision that as best as possible, as much as possible, when that would happen, to come back to a place, to anything that felt a little bit better. So the key really is feeling. It's not the thought per se, but thoughts create sensations, create feelings in the body. So we're changing the feeling state more than anything. We have an electromagnetic field or a biofield, and every thought and emotion has an effect and is affected by the energy around us. This is real. And you know, days that you feel crappy, you're vibrating at a lower frequency than those moments in your life that you feel joyful and uplifted. You're vibrating at a higher frequency there. I really like the emotional scale that Abraham Hicks shares. It makes a lot of sense to me. So here at the most dense form of vibration of energy, we have fear, depression, powerlessness. And from that place, we go up to insecurity, jealousy, hatred, and all the way up. And don't get caught up on the names. Simply the name, the label, is just a placeholder for a vibration. So you know, if anger, you want to replace that with something else, or blame doesn't resonate with you, you can place that with something else. But you get the idea that we can shift up through this emotional scale until eventually we're up in passion, joy, appreciation, freedom, and love. And this is the state of moksha, the state of liberation that the yogis have been talking about for thousands of years. And it's really challenging to stay up in that state all the time. And I don't believe that we're meant to as humans. I think it's really about expanding our capacity of experience, of being okay with all of these emotions, knowing that they will come. But again, we get to choose how long we stay there. How long do you want to hang out in the destructive energy? And sometimes we kind of do want to hang out there. We get some power from it until we realize it's so exhausting and it's just the same old story. And then we go up into higher states of energy, of vibration, and then we slip back down. It's going to happen even throughout one day. You probably notice there's a whole range of emotions, of feelings, of thoughts, of sensations that move through the body, that move through your awareness. And it's important to understand that there's absolutely no judgment in this, that in fact anger isn't better or worse than hopefulness. It's just how long do you want to stay there? How long do you want to be in grief, powerlessness, worry? Some people hang out in these states their whole life, and it literally creates dis-ease in their mind, their body. So let's put this theory into practice, shall we? Please close your eyes. Place your feet flat on the floor if you can. Uncross your legs. And take 2 deep breaths. Relaxing your face and your shoulders. Becoming fully present to your current state. And I invite you to simply notice how you're feeling right now. And notice what thoughts are moving through the screen of the mind. And then catch one. Just catch one of your thoughts. So maybe the thought is, this is the best thing I've done at Wanderlust so far. And then notice the corresponding sensations or feelings in your body. Or maybe the thought is, oh gosh, I'm so hungry I didn't get to eat lunch. And then there's a corresponding sensation of tightness in the abdomen. Whatever it is, just notice a thought that is there for you right now, and then the corresponding sensation in the body. And then create, choose a thought that feels slightly better. So if the thought was, I miss lunch and I'm so hungry I'm going to fall over, maybe the slightly better feeling thought is, this talk will be over soon and I can go have a meal. And then that brings relief. So notice your thought, be aware of that thought, and then find a slightly more easy thought, slightly improved. And then take another deep breath. Now I invite you to call up a challenge in your life or a thought that you know very well that has gone over and over and over again in your mind. Something that's difficult, but not the most difficult thing in your life. Be aware of that challenge in the mind and what it does in your physical body when you think that thought. What is the corresponding sensation? And then call up, imagine in your mind a thought that feels just a little bit better. You don't want to jump too far ahead to a fantastical thought that you don't really buy into, but something that feels a little bit better than the challenging thought, the suffering thought. And then breathe that in and notice how that changes, shifts something in your physicality. And then slowly open your eyes and bring the awareness back into the room. The gauge of our spiritual growth is our capacity to love. The gauge of our spiritual growth is our capacity to love one another, but mostly to love ourselves. We need to create a deeply profound and transformative relationship with ourselves, to shift the programming of our past, and to change our inner dialogue from one of fear, shame, blame, self-deprecation, to one of love, faith, and self-appreciation. This is the inner work that has to happen. Without it, the outer work in the world is futile. And sometimes you might find yourself in a state of extreme pain, physically, mentally, or emotionally. And when you find that place that it's almost impossible to find a better feeling thought, then I've found this technique of the ancient Ho'oponopono prayer to be very useful to transmute energies within and without. So please join me. You can place one hand on your heart, close your eyes if you like, just tapping into the heart energy. Repeat after me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. We have the power to change our thoughts, feelings, and our beliefs. This is self-mastery. And I believe that you can do it, but you have to believe it too. Thank you. Namaste.
I'm so excited to talk to you about ceremony because I absolutely love it. I have notes here because sometimes I get way off, and I'm going to come back to my notes because I have some really specific things I want you to learn about.